The title of my paper is The Prophetic Vision of Church is the Metaverse. And this paper will discuss the merits of DJ Soto's prophetic word on church in the Metaverse. Though it accepts physical gathering, perhaps referred to as on-site where it exists, his word is that the central ministry hub will be based in the Metaverse. And I'll look at Karl Barth and Soren Kierkegaard's words on what a prophet is. Then there's a main part which reflects on the term's future of the church is in the Metaverse, before outlining some difficulties with this vision around digital poverty, costs of devices, headsets, limited access through computers, and availability of the platforms for the churches to develop. And then bring in our conclusion. Bock and Armstrong describe the church as a visible reality of the kingdom of God on earth now. And therefore, for mission, the Metaverse, I would suggest, is just one facet of a multifaceted approach. But as Alan Yeh describes it, we now can go from everyone to everywhere. DJ Soto started VR Church or Virtuality Church in 2016, and it has evolved since. Now with 6 pastors, 4 based in the US, 1 in Germany, and 1 in Netherlands, and has a base in several platforms, including Rust, Fantasy 14, Rec Room, and VR Chat, as well as a vibrant community on its Discord channel. And what Bishop DJ Soto says, and he has a podcast talking about this that he regularly presents, but he said the future of the church is in the Metaverse. Physical gatherings will still exist, but the center of our ministry will be a hub based in the Metaverse, perhaps a reversal of what we see now. And yet, can this come to fruition? Is he, to perhaps coin a phrase, living in another world? The Reformed theologian Karl Barth had in his study the painting of Matthias Grunewald's crucifixion scene from the Iseum altar, which he discusses in great length in Church Dogmatics 1. But he comments that a key aspect of this painting is the long finger that points to Christ whilst holding the scripture. For Barth, the outcome of Christian witness has to be that it points to Jesus. And any church in the Metaverse would need to emulate that their activities would point to Jesus. And as Kate Ortt identifies, digital technology has transformed the way we connect with each other. And Andrew has eloquently articulated how it developed over the years. I'm a bit young to remember some of that, but how digital technology and the churches have developed over the years. But the way we connect, the way we shape our identity, especially through avatars, and form our relationships. So could DJ Soto be seen as a prophet, or as Kierkegaard refers to them, as an apostle? Is he one who is called and appointed by God? Has he received a mission from him? Could his service be described as faithful and focused on carrying out his God-given task? And Bishop DJ Soto would say that he has been appointed and called by God. And again, he has anointed himself or called himself a bishop, but there are no denominational ties to that. And yet Barth describes a prophet as one who does not speak on their own behalf, but proclaims God's kingdom and the coming Messiah, seeing Christ as the ultimate prophet, the self-witness. DJ Soto's mission and his church is to the Metaverse, but the mission of the church surely is to all, both online and on site. And yet the term, the metaverse, can give us different interpretations. It first appeared in Neil Stephenson's 1992 science fiction novel, Snow Crash, describing a virtual environment where lifelike avatars engage with each other. 30 years later, it's a vision Silicon Valley are heavily investing in, and a few churches, predominantly American, have grasped the vision of the metaverse mission field. Yet in August 2021, Facebook changed its name to Meta to focus on this virtual world where access is gained predominantly through VR headsets. According to Statista, there are over 16 million VR headsets worldwide. And in the United States alone, over 200 million gamers. A sizable mission field, but not the only mission field. And it's this mission field that DJ Soto prophesies is the future of the church, becoming its community hub rather than on-site buildings. Perhaps the desire of DJ Soto is reflected in Soren Kierkegaard's work, that no one is satisfied with doing something definite. Everyone wants to feel flattered by reflection of the illusion of having discovered or at least created a new continent. And in the metaverse, there's plenty of opportunity to create a new continent, to reach people worldwide with the gospel as new platforms are developed and evolve. And yet a church in Canada, Vancouver, have started a mission trip to the metaverse. They're advertising in August this year, a mission trip to the metaverse. The idea is to go and be missionaries in the metaverse as opposed to in on-site country. And it says an unparalleled opportunity to explore the intersection of faith and technology, reaching out to people who might never have had the chance to hear the gospel message otherwise. There's a cost of $500 if you want to go, although if you've got your own headset, it's reduced to $150, and that's to cover administration costs, they say, although they argue it's quite a lot cheaper than an overseas mission trip on site. And yet they're leading missions into the metaverse. And yet we've been there for 3, 4, 5 years already talking to people about Jesus. But how easy is it? Natasha Keene, in Phil Jones and Tes Osborne's book, Virtual Reality Methods, undertook an ethnographical investigation of the communities formed around church services that take place in VR. And she described VR as a more immersive religious experience and community, highlighting that VR Church offers a new and innovative opportunity for people to develop real relationships across geographical barriers. But even in the metaverse, apart from VR Church, all the other churches have an on-site ministry, and their digital ministry is just an aspect of the on-site ministry. The focus is normally 90% on-site and perhaps 10% as digital. And yet they refer to their on-site activities as real life church. Even DJ Soto in his words described them as physical gathering. But as digital theologians, we would argue that even in VR, we are still real people and physically present. But DJ Soto's prophecy sees a reversal of this, where the church hub is in the metaverse and on-site is a secondary organization, a secondary operation. Dave Adamson describes this meta church as multiple expressions of church community, all working together, whether it's in person, online, on site, house church, virtual, whichever terminology you wish to use, with one mission. And that mission must be to tell people about Jesus. But would we expect a prophet to be engaged with the church? But can the metaverse be described as a real church? A question some people have asked. Avery Dulles offers us 6 models of church which relate to established churches, focusing on their methods and relationships with one another and their community. And metaverse church doesn't really fit within. Karl Barth is more helpful when he outlines 7 characteristics of a real church, focusing on its relationship with God, its visibility in the world, and living a life reflecting Christ. Jürgen Moltmann speaks about church without Christ isn't a church. The church needs to believe in Jesus. And this is a clear factor and definition of a church. It requires the stamp of Christ on it. Hans Kung speaks about a visible church of human beings. A real church has to perhaps consist of real people and not invisible ones. Are people represented by avatars real people? I would argue they are. Is it a visible church? Well, it's only a visible church when you are in that community. And yet the Lausanne Occasional Paper 68 offers a different definition, paper written by Jonas Kohlberg and others. And it talks about an authentic church community. It's a community of people who are in a relationship with Christ and with one another. And that happens in Metaverse Church. Digital technology can provide connective spaces where people can make and sustain transforming relationships with God and with one another. Church can exist within these spaces, and spiritual friendships can be embedded into everyday life. But the metaverse is a community, but I would suggest it is a disjointed one. There are so many different platforms that you can be a community within a platform, but not across the whole thing, because many platforms do not interact with each other. And if the metaverse is the church, then people are represented by avatars. And that is the church of the future. How would we know who everyone is? Would we really know anyone? The individual's avatar is created, well, in their image sometimes, but not always. It being created in any image that they want. Or has it been created as imago meta, as the Gospel Coalition article describes it? They suggest we identify more with a virtual version of ourselves than with our real selves. People may begin to conflate their God-given identity with the self-made identity they craved or crafted in the metaverse. The imago Dei is about to encounter the imago meta, is suggested, or as others have described, our digital twin, where one on site and a different online. But then, as technology develops, so do avatars. Some of you may have seen or gone to the ABBA Voyager musical. And here the avatar is a direct representation of the person, of their band. It walks, it moves, it talks like the original person, perhaps limited at the moment by current location and the need for 160 cameras and motion capture suits. But actually in the future, maybe we will look like I look now as we go into the metaverse platforms. And even in some avatars today, you can put your photo on and they will create an avatar from your photo. If the presence of God is where his people are, and cyberspace is the new public square, And if God is omnipotent and omnipresent, he must be in the metaverse. Otherwise, the indication is his power is limited, which means he is not God. But what are the challenges? First of all, digital poverty. Not everyone can get into the metaverse. Statistics say that in June 2022, Asia had the leading number of internet users. Europe was second. But in the UK, the share of households, they say, for access to internet is around 97%. But compare this with Africa, where access is around perhaps 31%, and even lower in the more rural areas. From experience, I know that data is expensive in parts of Africa. So even with mobile phones, they can only engage for a limited time. How are they going to be engaged in the metaverse? Then the cost of headsets. Even within the minority world, the cost of headsets can be prohibitive, especially during the current financial crisis. If you want the run-of-the-mill Oculus Quest, and there are other makes available from Samsung, I think that's the one I've got, it's around £400. If you want the latest one from Oculus, it's over £1,000. If you want the soon to be released, maybe Apple headset, then that's going to retail at £1,500 approximately. Or if you want the Microsoft HoloLens, it comes in at 3,500 around there. And often as technology develops, then it comes down in cost. If we remember back to when the first computers come out, they now cost a lot less. But as technology and headsets have developed, then they become more expensive. Newer ones costing 3 to 4 times as much as previous ones. And there was an article in the UK in the Sunday Times last weekend, which highlighted that one of the blocks for virtual reality is the goggles. And the suggestion that the virtual reality experience has been shown in studies to disproportionate cause nausea amongst female users. And this was also highlighted in the Jones and Osborne research. So sometimes even using the headset can be prohibitive. Of course, you can access some of the apps through physical computers, but I would suggest that it isn't the same. It's not such an immersive event. And then the availability of platforms. The overriding concern is the influence of Meta and Microsoft and Apple in the development process. In March 23, Microsoft closed down AltSpace VR, which was the platform to go. The churches in there had started off with a handful for about 2024 by the time it had closed. And suddenly the whole mission was finished. Everything they could do, they could create their own worlds like their church. They could create worlds that were immersive, like crossing the Red Sea, as Andrew has mentioned. It was a solid platform. And now for some churches, they're back to square one. There's other platforms like VR chat, Rec Room, Big Screen, Spatial, but they're not as user friendly. And so perhaps we've got to change our mission. And in conclusion, I'd argue that a prophetic vision of church is the metaverse, but it's not the only vision there is. Alan Yeh speaks about the light, the phenomenon known as world Christianity. Mission is polycentric and polydirectional, from everyone to everywhere. No one conference or continent, even those newly ones we discovered, according to Kierkegaard, does mission best. But together, each provides a valuable piece of the puzzle. And the metaverse is one piece of the mission puzzle that Christ has given us to be witnesses to. Thank you.